Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy are two of the most exciting and sought-after young actors in film today. Between them, their work at the cutting edge of contemporary British cinema has garnered rave reviews, as well as nominations at both the BAFTAs and the Golden Globes.
You ready for this?
Let's find out.
But despite both appearing in the TV serial Band of Brothers, it's a Hollywood blockbuster that gives them the opportunity to work together for the first time on the big screen.
Listen to me very carefully, my friend. Killing will not bring you peace. Peace was never an option.
On the eve of the film's release, McAvoy and Fassbender met to discuss their collaboration on X-Men First Class.
Name's Xavier. Charles Xavier, how do you do? Cheers.
Michael, thank you for joining me here today.
Pleasure.
Something's telling me that I want to ask you about the first time I saw you on screen. How did I feel about the first time I saw you on screen? First time I saw you on screen was in Band of Brothers, and in which I actually thought you were American. I don't know why. There was a lot of Americans and a lot of Brits pretending to be Americans, but I thought you were one of the bona fide Yanks. And I was very surprised to find you on the street in a Vespa, and I thought, why has this guy got an Irish accent?
Why is he tapping me on the shoulder first?
No, there's a guy in a helmet. No, I'm being stopped.
Some crazed fan coming after you in a Vespa. Wait, we know each other.
Yeah, man, you ride a Vespa too, so do I. It's all cool.
Yeah, I know. First time I met James was on Band of Brothers. He was in a ditch. And I remember seeing this sort of cheeky, sort of Scottish chappy. And I was like, I like this guy's style. I just thought, you know, there was an element of mischief there and self-confidence.
Nice one.
And I thought I was very impressed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So much more to you than you know. Not just pain and anger. There's good in you too.
Basically, when I first of all found out about the job, Matthew called me up and he sort of ran me through the story and what he wanted to sort of achieve with this new sort of installment of the franchise. And I was already sort of intrigued by Matthew sort of taking the helm here and trying to do something new and fresh with it. But then I found out that yourself, James, was going to be playing a young Charles. And I thought, well, you know, that's definitely, I knew that in you I would have a strong ally. And also an actor that I felt was pretty much cut of the same sort of cloth as myself in terms of a very practical person, thoughtful, sensitive in terms of approaching the work, and also with a sense of humour. So it was definitely a big draw for me.
We have it in us to be the better men. We already are.
When they said that they were thinking of kind of actors like you and the kind of work that you've got in your back catalogue as well, I just thought, this film's going to be much more, I don't know, it's going to have much more oomph, I think, and much more power than I thought an X-Men movie should have, and that's not putting down the other X-Men movies, you know. But like you say, just somebody that treats it sensitively, has a sense of humour, but can also really, really deliver on the emotional stuff as well. And like you say, I felt like I might have a possible ally.
I'm not doing this.
All right, Cassidy, look, if you're not feeling comfortable with this, we know...
What?
I remember when because I had the screen test for it, and you know, you had already sort of been given the role. And I remember the phrase which sort of rang through my head for months on end was you going, well, you know, at the very least we're going to have fun. And you know, it was fun, and that was the great thing. I mean, not only sort of with yourself, but with all of the cast involved. Yeah. You know, if there was sort of a fracturing within the sort of acting group, it would have been very, very difficult. But the great thing was, I think, you know, very sort of strong friendships were built, and there was a lot of support from that whole sort of, you know, creative camp. And, you know, there are a lot of decision makers when you're making a film like this, and you know, we did stick to our guns in certain areas where we felt, well, we felt very strongly about, you know, especially the sort of relationship that we were dealing with. It was a major sort of, if we didn't manage to get that relationship right, the chances were the rest of the film would sort of disintegrate around it. And that idea of you know, you must remember, like, how many times we sat down with Matthew, with Jane, just to sort of try and make sense of that relationship and try and make a relationship that was real and plausible, and that would essentially, hopefully, if we got it right, leave the audience feeling very despondent in the fact that these two people and these two characters couldn't manage to sort of, you know, well, more so from Eric's point of view, compromise and gel together, and together you would have felt that they would have been quite a formidable force.
Tomorrow, mankind will know that mutants exist. They'll fear us, and that fear will turn to hatred.
I hope you felt this way. I really, early on, kind of wanted to kind of nail my colours to the mast and just go like, I'm on your team.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And whether I really understand a particular point you're trying to make, or a grievance you've got about the script, or whatever it is, I'll back you up. Do you know
exactly,
what I mean? And it's really important. It's really amazing to have that. That's why I'll be gutted if we do a sequel to this. If you're the bad guy and I'm the good guy and we don't really have any scenes together. So I'll need to find a new buddy.
Well, I think, you know, even like with whatever's going to happen in the future, you know, we always said the idea of sort of sitting down at the sort of grassroots part of it to try and sort of get that input in there. And the idea, what I've always found interesting about the relationship, even sort of in the, you know, in the later sort of series, the original sort of trilogy, with the two characters, what I've always found really intelligent and mature about the writing was the fact that, like great political leaders that are enemies, that idea that they can sit down, have lunch together, and actually be very sort of amiable towards one another, you know, at the same time when there's massive conflict between the two characters. I think that's a very mature choice in dealing with two sort of characters that are at odds with each other. At a certain point, you know, again, sort of, you know, harking back to the sort of mischievous sort of side of being an actor, and I think, you know, sometimes that can get a little bit lost, especially in sort of present-day circumstances when there's so much money involved, and there's a lot of sort of, you know, numbers men involved, and obviously, you know, this is, you know, a big film with a lot of money at stake, but I still sort of had a, you know, a friend in James in terms of like, well, I started taking to sort of stealing the caddy carts and sort of and the gators or whatever I could get my hands on that was four wheels with a steering wheel, and sort of, you know, ripping around set and ripping in between sort of studios. And then James sort of cottoned on to that idea pretty quickly as well. So we sort of took turns driving the sort of little caddy cars around set. One day James got to the steering wheel before me, which was fine, so I decided to jump on the back of the caddy cart and counterbalance in the back. And we went screeching into the caravan village at the full 10 mile an hour that was allotted in those
I think it might have been 12. I think it was restricted.
I think it probably was at that point. They definitely restricted the engines after this incident. But
restricted my access, I don't know.
Yeah, well, James sort of came screeching into the caravan village and slap bang into the back of a Lexus. He went flying into the screen on the ground. I went flying over the back seat, banged my head off the steering wheel, and ended up in the driver's seat, and consequently got the blame. And that is sort of that remains like my fondest memory on X-Men. I actually have the scar to prove it. If we can get in there, that's a scar that sort of dates back to October now, I would say.
It does, man. I'm really sorry.
And I have that little memento.
The weirdest thing was, like, I was in the front, he was counterbalancing. We were really pulling some lovely lines. And I remember you saying at the time, you thought, wow, man, this guy is just...
like, he's good.
He's really,
this
really
guy's good.
But as we were coming around the corner, the tyres just caught traction and pulled us in at a right angle into the back of this Lexus. Like I said, I hit my head off the screen, and I flew about 10 feet.
Yeah, you did.
I got up immediately, looked up at the caddy car, and Michael was sitting in the driver's seat. I was really worried about you. And you just started laughing, like maniacally. Just full of life. I thought, Jesus, I think he might be slightly cracked. And then all the assembled crew were standing there, kind of shaking their heads and going, "You guys are so bad," and blaming him. And then you ran away.
I ran away. I just
like,
sort of put like in a real sort of...
I'm not even exaggerating, but it was a...
It was a real Charlie Chaplin moment.
It was.
But, you know, that's the, you know, getting back to it, I was like, God, this guy's really good, you know, fine, precise driving. I actually just realised you're crazy. And that was interesting.
That helped us know what we were in.
Exactly, what it was all about.
You don't want to be against the world. You want to be a part of it.
What is an audience going to like? What do you think an audience is going to
I don't know. I never really know how to answer that question. I know that personally when I went to see it, what really impressed me about it and and full credit to Matthew for that, is the idea that there's elements in the script which are sinister, there's elements that are very sort of serious and somber moments, and yet at the same time the characters send themselves up, and there's a kitsch element to it which I find fun, and Matthew manages to do that in a lot of his films. And you know, I think what perhaps, and I don't want to sort of say this in any way, sort of in any sort of arrogant way, I think, you know, as opposed to sort of most sort of superhero blockbuster action films, commercially based, we managed to retain a sort of character-driven piece, and a piece that sort of deals with complex relationships. And also on top of that, we've got some great set-piece action pieces which are very imaginative and off the wall. And I think that's what hopefully will stand it apart.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the only thing I've got to add to that is just the fact that I don't think it's too pole-faced. I don't think it takes itself too seriously. Like you say, the characters send themselves up, but the film sends itself up sometimes as well.
Which is something that you were always sort of trying to sort of focus on as well. I remember you were always trying to sort of, wherever you could, sort of throw in a one-liner and you know, and sort of do that, and sort of, you know, harking back to that first meeting that we had, where you said, well, you know, at the very least, this is going to be fun. It has to be fun. If it's not fun, then the audience aren't going to find it fun.
These films aren't going to change people's lives, so they need to entertain. They've got to be a good ride, and hopefully, I think we've done that.
Yes.
Michael, I thank you.
James, I thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.